Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Durable by Design. I'm joined by Crispy Barnett. How's it going over there?
Good. I'm fired up about this topic.
Yeah. That's great. Let's make it stick. And let's talk about what is this topic? What is going to help us make, I'd call companies in general, let's do service companies more durable by design today.
Such a good one. This topic is, I'll start with our problem statement. You are not durable by design if you have not standardized the way you deliver your services, period. And I'm going to walk through why the problem, what the impact of that problem is, and how you solve it directly, and how I solved this directly when I was a partner.
Okay, so I'm going to make sure. So you must standardize delivery services. People say, yeah, I've done that. And I would say I've done that in the past. And actually, Super is a response to how freaking difficult that is. But I did it. I put it in ClickUp. I had Loom videos. I had Google Docs. I had my own intranet. I had all these ways to serve a standard specific way. So when you say standardize, I'm excited. Like, what does that actually mean? And what are you going to recommend?
So that's a good example. Is like, that's not standardizing the way you deliver your service, because a lot of people think that standardization is the internal like piece of the process, which is all of my team members are using the same systems. They're all following the same process, stuff like that. But that's not why you standardize. It's not, because you're not standardizing for you. You're standardizing for your customers. That's the difference. Is you standardize your delivery to provide an experience that is repeatable across all of your strategists, team members, blah, 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 to ensure that your experience is equivalent and excellent across each of your service lines. That is why you do it.
Received. I agree so much. I create a product. I feel like we're about to do a commercial for Super and deal with it. So it sounds like, is there an easy way? Like, how do you like to talk about this problem? I know you had some visual. I don't know if it's possible to share that.
Yeah.
For those who can't see, just listen to the audio. Sorry, go to YouTube and look at it and deal with it. It is much more useful. We'll do our best here.
So I will talk through it if you're listening on some other podcast network. But here is the problem, right? A lot of people want to productize their services. And fun fact, it's not fucking possible. It's just not. Because when you're a service provider, you are catering to the unique needs of the customer, regardless of how unique you are or think you are. You're not. Spoiler alert, there's another episode on how you're not. But the way that you service your customers is very unique, because the difference is in how they solve problems, approach solutions, blah, blah, blah. So this is a good example of what I was doing early on in the workflow days, which is if I was doing HubSpot onboarding, CRM implementation, reconfiguration, marketing agency stuff, like it literally does not matter what the service is, right? I was using Lucidchart for process mapping. I was using Zoom recordings for custom training. I was using Google Sheets, Google Slides, Slack canvases, like all kinds of stuff like that for basic notes, quick tips, documentation, blah, blah, blah. I was using ClickUp for project management. I was using Loom for evergreen training videos. And I was using stuff like HubSpot comments for collaboration, which is at Matt, please review this workflow and let me know if it meets your standards, blah, blah, blah. The problem here is that is 6 different platforms for the customer to experience one service. One service.
Say it again. That's 6 platforms, one service. I've watched something called, what was it called? 2 cups, one thing. I can't remember, but this sounds a lot like it. This is 6 platforms, one service. I don't know why that came to mind, but we're going to be, please feel free to edit that out. There's I want to say this big picture, because we talked about this. This is the same thing with tech stack consolidation. If you want to create intellectual property and productize, you actually, in order to do that, you must decrease the amount of tech platforms you are in order to standardize. And there's nothing, no one's thinking about this problem this way. This is why I created, like I say this is the initial idea, the premise behind Super. Everything we built, and they're like, there's nothing that looks like this. You're like 35% project management, 65% knowledge base, that yes, because it's built to create experiences. And I'll say this, it doesn't matter what service. Every service needs process mapping. Let me say, every good service.
Yes.
Because there are some out there that don't do these things. And I would call you a bad service. I would eat your money if I competed against you. I would just take it. It's like taking candy from a kid.
Exactly.
Every service needs what you just stated. I'm going to say it again out loud. Every service company that you are offering needs process. It could be window washing.
Yep.
You would need process mapping to show people how they're going to, what you're going to do and how they're going to get value. You're going to need some kind of training or review on how to keep your windows good. You're going to need a way to communicate every single time, whether that's like in a Google or you're going to have a document design. You are going to have a certain way to show them that your task is going to happen. You're going to have to show them quick tips afterwards to keep like what are you supposed to buy? How do you get a hold of me next time? And you're going to have a way to get reviews. These functions are actually the same regardless of service and regardless of what you're doing. And there's a lot more of them. You just did 6. There's actually way more things that you need that are ubiquitous for any service company you have.
Yeah. I mean, and I totally agree with you. And this is a very light example in the sense of this was after I had optimized and scraped down some other platforms afterward. This was post optimization of what I thought, and I was fucking wrong. Like I was very wrong.
And what's interesting is I talked to, like, this is post optimization analyst. I didn't use Lucidchart. I use Miros. I didn't use we use Zoom recordings for call recordings, and we use Loom for trainings. For notes, we exclusively use ClickUp. I had combined ClickUp for both task review and notes, so I decreased one there. And then for comments, we didn't do any comments. I literally said I will not look at or review any comments inside HubSpot. You must do it on the ClickUp task. Now, what you saw, why did I do that? I actually optimized for internal uses, and it wasn't about giving the customer experience, because I knew I could make more money. I could optimize processes better internally. And so one of the flips here is the ability to give external experiences at scale and not just solve for internal issues.
Exactly. And so this is like what I mentioned about, this was my final tech stack after I had some level of internal standardization, which is fine, but ultimately what you're trying to do is standardize your delivery so that your customer experiences it in the same way. It's like the McDonald's scenario. If I go to McDonald's in Seattle versus Houston, I'm getting the same Big Mac, the same French fries, the same.
And that does not mean a standardized, no thought, brain dumb onboarding of something. No, this means I'm able to give you a better experience, because the 70% that's always, and it's always 70% the same, the 30% where I'm using, I can spend more time on. Which is building the workflow, or if I'm in Palo.io, it's about getting the sequences correct and the enrich, whatever it is.
Yeah. And so let's talk about implications of this and implications of not doing this primarily. So in this model, here's what happens. You use Lucidchart and you think that it's valuable documentation for a customer to use to run their business. They have documentation here and other dumb stuff like previous Zoom recordings, Loom content, blah, blah, blah. Here's what happens. And this applies to sales teams, CRM teams, anyone. If you share a Google Doc with me and expect me to use it 3 months from now, like, guess what? Like, I'm not going to. Like, period. It's not going to work. I don't give a shit about a Google Doc that you created 3 months ago. That's not a sticky experience. Hence why I'm wearing my sticky hat today. The goal of this is to become sticky as a service provider. And if you're giving me bullshit Google documents, like, I'm going to throw it out the fucking window. Done.
Yeah. And I'm going to make this point is one of the things I think a lot about is how do people become durable by design? And I'd say competitive against AI. Or how do I integrate? How do I become AI proof? And in fact, I would say like AI proof is all these functions, process mapping. AI cannot think about a business with all its variables in the same way. It's just no matter what, you have to have a process map on how you're going to design something. Humans must start any process.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So how it's mapped, and it must be able to be changed. Zoom recordings, when you train humans or you tell somebody about something, it's captured at a point in time. You must have it. Notes talking about what happened. You might create, the AI might create it, but it must live somewhere and be accessible at all points. It's like there's, and we must give it to the customer in a way that they can get access to it all the time.
Yeah,
that is one of the key points.
Which is what we'll show on later on in this solution chart. And I think one of the thoughts or questions that might come up is, well, what am I supposed to use in replacement of these? And the answer is nothing, right? And the difference is like this is an internal standardization process that we've chosen. These are great pieces of technology to run your business. Like these are very important. I don't suggest getting rid of these at all. Yep. The difference that you have is here, which is these are very important for how I do what I'm doing when I'm a service provider. The difference is the delivery vessel piece, which means that the customer accesses the value of my service in a single environment. And that's when it becomes valuable. So I'll tell you this, for all the partners that we work with that struggle with driving recurring revenue, it's because you're not doing this. This is the number one reason of why you don't drive recurring revenue. It's because you're not standardizing your delivery. The value of your service is not consistently reiterated to the customer.
Yeah, this actually gives me epiphany. I mean, I build Super, so which is odd, but like this gives me epiphany in the way to communicate is you need to you have to internally standardize, which we can help you with. I can talk to you about the best process. Well, probably, you know what? We will. We'll talk about what's the best process map and what's the best way to do training. What's the best way to create notes and documentations. All those things are things you must standardize on.
Yes.
But more importantly, and I'd actually say in first priority is you must standardize the way you deliver, not the way you internally create things. And so where is your value being experienced? And I literally think this is a missing piece of technology and thought.
Yes. For
service companies.
Yeah. And it's not just service companies either is the difference. So like higher up in this, like, let's go back to this chart, right? We'll talk about other value first before we go to like the other use case. But a lot of companies, especially with like the AI revolution, and people are thinking about, well, how do I bring on new team members and how do I bring on new services and platforms and stuff like that? The beauty to doing this is not just standardizing externally for your customer, but also the other beauty of this is that you can plug in any new service at the top end of this, any new platform at the top end of this, any new team member at the top of this, because from there is only one option for how the customer receives your service, which means there's no mechanical definitions or technical like things you have to figure out in terms of how it's delivered to the customer, because there's only one fucking option, which is exactly how you standardize your service. That's exactly what you're doing here.
Yeah. And like what's not in here, guys, if you can't see it, you're listening, is what's happening is there's like the process mapping, the training recordings, the notes and documentations, the ClickUp tasks, the Loom videos, and even the comments back and forth are all now put in one place in a delivery vessel. And that sounds like, well, is there anything that does that? Is it even possible? The answer is yes, there is. It's Super is what's created to do.
Yes.
And if you don't know what that is, if you're listening to this now, and you know what Super is, shame, go look at it and get something. But like this is why it's created. One of the other options that we just don't see here, again, this is a simplistic way to communicate, just to quickly communicate. There's the idea of how do I get a scope request or a change request, and how do I receive it? How do people ask for, communicate back and forth? And what if I'm in Slack? How do I? All these things are like those are still standardized in a delivery vessel. And one of the core concepts here is that the customer owns. And so that you're giving something to the customer that they own and get to keep, and then we'll utilize inside their business to do all the same stuff here, because everybody has to do these things inside their business.
Yep. Yeah,
because every business is a tech company, but I would actually switch this now, and every company is a service company, right? Because they have internal, like every company is both.
Yep. I totally agree. And this is where, if you truly want to extract full value from your customer and be the sticky provider, right? Like this is the way to do it, because ultimately if you are the builder of their documentation and therefore the builder of their processes and their business, and you're like very deeply ingrained in their RevOps initiatives, every time they go and search for their documentation or search for their process, you're there forever as long as they used it. Like that's how you stay sticky. You are in the place where they work, which is the key difference between successful documentation and successful operational strategies and those that tip over immediately. And the best use case that we have for this is like the sales rep training use case. Like I've worked with sales reps for like over a decade now. And fun fact, Sales reps fucking suck at following process by design, because a sales rep's job is to close deals, win revenue, right? If you want to like tame a wild horse, like it's fucking hard. And that's what sales reps are. They're a bunch of stallions out there that are like bucking around and closing deals, right? The difficult thing with that is, how do you find the balance between introducing process and training and knowledge into their flow of work without disrupting where, like, and taking them away from where they're supposed to be? And so similar concept of like, if I want to train a sales rep, and this is why ramping takes so long, like 6 to 9 months is what I'm hearing as averages from like big tech. Recorded Zoom calls for like, watch this demo from 8 years ago that we had, and this is the best demo ever that we hold on to, right? SOPs in Google Docs, a knowledge base where you can find keyword search of like, this is what quota is or whatever. Loom for evergreen content, and sales onboarding and guides initially when you're ramping, where most of your training occurs. But you know what happens is, I'm a sales rep. I go through my 3-month onboarding and have all my training done there, and then I forget about it in 2 weeks. That's what happens. The difference is putting this where they work. And that is where the like Super as a tool shines more than any other platform out there from an enablement standpoint. Is
and then combine these two things. What if you had a service that helps sales reps onboard?
Yeah.
And it's literally nothing different than RevOps. And like, it's the same thing. And that's the beauty of Super.
Yeah.
Doing good work.
Yeah. And
yeah.
I'm saying and I'm like on a fucking tangent now. Yeah. The real like amazing, the really amazing thing about this is, I think people think, wow, this is a huge change from what I'm doing right now. It's like, actually, it's not. This is fucking easy to do, because the hardest part of doing this is writing out all your dumb shit that you're putting in Google Docs. It doesn't get looked at anyway. That's the hardest part. And you can use ChatGPT to format whatever it is into a much more digestible way. #supered format with bluff statements, right? And put that in, instead of a Google Doc, put it into a card in Supered. And then it's accessible right at their fingertips. It's no difference in process or additional step at all.
So, Crispy, if I was looking at this and I was asking you, and I think you can stop sharing just for, don't stop blowing people's minds. Sure. If I was what I hear often about changing this would be, oh, that's so much work, and I just don't think I have time to change. What was your response if I came on a call with you and said that statement to you? I want to do this. It's just a matter of time. I love what you're talking about. I need to first figure out what my process mapping tool is.
Here's what happens with the service provider use case. Number one, and we've talked about this many times before, if you had to prioritize your customer list, you know who's at the bottom? You are your last customer. And that's how service providers work, because you're always solving for others. You're always solving for customers, stuff like that, which means that you will always prioritize doing client delivery work ahead of working on your own business, which is bad. It means if you ever want to exit one day, if you ever want to get out of the trenches and stop doing like client delivery work, you have to spend time working on the business. And that's exactly what this is.
So right? Said a different way, when's the best time to plant a tree, Crispy?
Yeah. 30 years ago. You know when the second best time is? Fucking right now. Right now.
Yeah, I think there's a reality of, and I'd state it this way, is if you believe this will help you win more revenue, meaning either win new services or keep clients longer, every second you wait, you're losing money. Mm-hmm. And I would even say every second someone doesn't have a primary delivery vessel of what they're doing, they are losing money. They're losing money to the competition, because we're teaching people this. You're just like, it's like this will be the way people are translating value, and it's AI proof.
Yeah.
Like, people will want, in fact, this will be more important. I want to feel like I have a human that's helping me all the time, that I have direct access to, that's showing me value. Yeah, you may use AI to do work, but I want direct access to a person. I feel like you're doing this, and this is the way to standardize delivery, even if you got AI bots doing things for you.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, you will fail. You will get destroyed by other people that are doing this. because you're going to be so focused on like delivering work. You're a headless chicken, right? That's exactly what you are. If you run around and just deliver client work and not work on your own business, like this like outputs and outcomes, higher profitability of your services, repeatability of your services, right? Enabling yourself to go to customer, right? And actually drive revenue instead of having to growth plateau. It's just growth, and that's it.
Love it. Crispy, and what's the last thing you want to leave people with?
I echo the tree thing is going to be my new thing that I tell people, where it's like, you want to have a badass tree in your yard? Like, the best time to plant it was fucking 30 years ago. And yeah, the second best time, today, right now. That's it, if you want to succeed.
So go plant that mother clucking tree.
That's right.
As we do that, and stop being a headless chicken. Love it. Crispy, thank you everybody for joining us today. Stay awesome. Keep doing it big and never stop planting trees. Adios, everybody.